Welcome back to Hot Flashes and Cold Topics podcast, everybody. We are really thrilled today to have Jen Mann on. Now, Jen Mann, you probably know from people I Want to Punch in the Throat, a blog and book. And she also has a book, Midlife Bites. Anyone else falling apart, or is it just me? And this book has been out and I just discovered it, which is really a shame on my part that I just discovered it. And you also have a great Facebook group that a lot of women can get on there and really just let go and talk about what's troubling them. So first of all, I want to thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, I appreciate you having me, and I'm glad you found the book. You can find it the day it's released or 10 years from now, and I'll still be happy.
Yes, and it will still be relevant. So
Right.
yeah, it just so much what you say in there resonates with people. You're very humorous in the book, very open and honest. And as I read it, I was like, yeah, so many topics that I want to get into about. Yeah. So can you share what led you to write the Midlife Bites book and start this group?
I think what led me to it was I kind of was having my own midlife crisis. I was turning 47 a few years ago, and I breezed through like 30, 35, 40, kind of those, like, I don't know, those big birthdays that people worry about. And I thought, oh, this is easy. And then I got to 47, and all of a sudden I was like, oh crap, my life is literally half over. Like there's no way around this. Like I can't even pretend like it's not. And I thought, what have I done with my life? And I started kind of like spiraling about, like, have I accomplished enough? Are my kids good kids? Are they going to be able to move out of my house someday and like contribute to society? And I thought about my husband, and I was like, gosh, are we going to be like, what are we going to talk about for the next 25? Yes, my life's half over, but I still have like 25 more years with this guy probably. And like, what will we talk about? And will he always eat soup like that? And I just started going like down this crazy spiral. And then I started feeling guilty, because then I was like, no, this is crazy. Like you have a career that people really would love to have. You have great kids, you have a good marriage, you have a safe home to live in. Like it was winter, and it's like, you're warm, and you had dinner tonight. What is your deal? Like, and I started having all this guilt. And then I also thought, no, I can be unhappy. Like, I'm allowed to be unhappy. I think we don't have to compare notes on who has the worst. I think everyone can be unhappy. And my husband was out of town that night, and I called him, and I was really upset. And he just was sort of like, he goes, are we going to get divorced? And I was like, I don't know. I haven't decided yet. Because I kind of just felt like I'd be better off on my own. I was like, oh, I think I can't do this anymore. I can't do people anymore. And so he told me, at that point I'd been writing on my People I Want to Punch in the Throat blog, and I had books and social media and stuff. And I've been writing on that for, I don't know, 9 years or something like that. And he was like, this is something you have to take to your community. He's like, I can't help you. And he's like, I don't know what to say to you. He's like, but they do, because I guarantee you are not the only person feeling like this. And he's like, you're not the only middle-aged woman that's like going through this kind of like anxiety and angst and second guessing. And he's like, I think you need to write about it and just let your community help you get through this. And so I wrote a blog post that night called, is anybody else falling apart, or is it just me? I put it out on my blog. I hadn't really been blogging regularly for years at that point, but I still had, I guess, decent reach on there, and it just sort of took off, and the replies and the comments and the emails started flooding in, and it was a lot of women saying, oh my gosh, I'm feeling this, but I didn't know what it was. Like, I didn't know how to say this. I didn't know how to articulate this. And the best was, I even had some men that were like, oh my God, this is my wife. Like, I know exactly, now I know how to talk to her. I know what to say to her. Holy crap, I got to go talk to her right now. Like, she's going to leave me, And, and so I realized that really right then that I needed to create a Facebook group. I have a pretty big presence on Facebook, and I have a lot of different private communities or public communities on there. And I just thought, we need a place to talk about this. And so I created a Facebook group called Midlife Bites. And I think we're up to like, I don't know, 40,000 women now or something like that in there. But at the same time, my my editor from Penguin Random House, she follows me, she reads my blog, and she sent me an email that night, and she was like, this is your next book. Like, this is what we have to talk about. And so we started working on it right away.
Well, these conversations are luckily happening more often, and women are starting to feel more seen and more heard in this demographic, which is beyond time, because we are a demographic that is growing very quickly. We're living longer. What do you want to do with it? And one of the reasons Bridget and I started this podcast was to talk about, what do you want to do with this next stage of life? Life is not over when the kids leave. Life is not over when you go through menopause. As a matter of fact, who wants their period? Like keep it. I don't, I'm always saying to my 20-year-olds, you know what I don't miss? My period. You know what I don't miss? Hormonal migraines. You know what I don't miss? Cramping. So it's changing the narrative to see more of a positive. But in this book, you really kind of touch on things like the raging hormones, saying yes to things, finding your purpose. How did you determine what you wanted to talk about in this book?
This one was a little bit different. Everything else I've ever written, I write nonfiction stories about my life. And so before I even start the book, I know what stories I'm going to tell. They've already happened. I know how they end. I know, in this book, I was sort of like, oh crap, like what are we going to talk about? What am I comfortable talking about? And what do I feel, not only what do I feel comfortable sharing personally, but what do I feel comfortable, maybe even like giving advice on? I felt a little bit like a fraud at times. My editor and I would have these conversations where I'd be like, I'm not self-help. Like, I'm not a doctor. I don't know. And she was like, no one's asking you to be a doctor. Just, say what you think and say what you're doing. And I was like, And so, yeah, because it was kind of a new genre for me. I call it angry self-help. I don't know what else to call it. and, but I really used the group. I kind of came up with my own things that I knew, like I really sat around and thought about, like, what do I want to talk about? What's bothering me? This was a very personal book to me. Like, it was sort of like, what am I experiencing and what do I want to talk about? And so, and some of that time, you'll read some of the reviews and they'll be like, gosh, this lady talks about herself a lot. And I'm like, I know, it's about me. It's me. And so, and then I used the group as a sounding board, and my editor is in the group, and there would be topics that would come up and she would tag me and she would say, Jen, this is a great topic. We should explore this, and things like that. And I kind of took the temperature with them to see, one, do they want to talk about what I want to talk about? Is it going to resonate? And then two, what am I missing? What am I forgetting about? Or what do I not know about? I'm not divorced. Divorce is a huge part of being in midlife and trying to, reinvent yourself in that regard. And what am I going to do now? And is it great or is it bad? I have friends who have, parties, and I have friends who have, practically like funerals, when they get divorced. And so it's like, which way are we going to go? I'm not an empty nester yet, but, I just sent my first kid off to college this year. And so I don't have that experience yet, but I know the dread that I was feeling that was coming, and, that kind of thing. And so it just, I just kind of I usually just make lists and I just kind of start writing. And then if a chapter, if it works, it stays. If it doesn't work, it goes.
So when you talked about how, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, when you went to your doctor brought up that it could be perimenopause. And it's so wild, the experiences, because my doctor at 47 wouldn't believe me. When I told them, I think I am heading into menopause, she wouldn't believe me. A female doctor wouldn't believe me. So it's so wild, the different experiences that women get and the different messages that women get. And I'm sure you hear that on your blog. Can you share what that experience is like and how you felt from there when you were told, hey, you might be going through?
Yeah. I think my doctor, my doctor he's been my doctor since I was pregnant with my first, right? And back then I was in my, I think I gave birth at the first time at like 33, 34, something like that. But they called me a geriatric pregnancy in those days. I don't know if they still do now. Women are waiting much longer, but back then it was like, oh, she's so old.
I think it's over 35 is geriatric now.
Okay.
Geriatric, wow.
And so he just kept calling me a geriatric pregnancy. And so I think in his mind, I was already old. And so it didn't surprise him when I came to him at 47 and he was like, oh yeah, like you are, you're old. No, I think it just, and I think because he'd known me for so long and I told him, I'm like, I've always been angry. I mean, I have a whole cottage industry built on being angry. So I get that I was born pissed off, but I said, I'm beyond like right now. Like I want to burn stuff to the ground for real. Like I really want to burn something. And I had been listening to NPR in the car and literally on my way there, and they were talking about depression, and they were talking about that rage is a sign and of depression. And I was like, what? And I was like, I'm depressed, And so when I got to the doctor, I told him this, and he was like, oh, I don't think you're depressed. I just think you're in menopause. Like, I think you're in perimenopause. And I was like, well, then how long is that going to last? And, if I was already mad, I about flipped the exam table because he's like, oh, it could be, 2 years to 8 years or whatever it was. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? And I just was because I was like, okay, well, give me something. Give me a pill, give me a shot, give me a cream, give me something. What are we going to do about this? And he was like, oh, yeah, I don't really recommend much because it just, there's no point in it. It doesn't work that well. Or, I mean, he had all these reasons why I shouldn't be doing things. And because he'd been my doctor for so long, I just sort of like let it go. I just believed him, and I was just sort of like, oh, so what do I do? And he's like, oh, and he just sort of patted me and he's like, you'll get through this, dear. Women have for centuries. And,
Oh,
and I left
not
that
cool.
day. I found a new doctor and I went to see this new doctor and she was like, oh girl, there's so many things we can do for you. And so so she's been wonderful because she doesn't doubt a thing I say. I go in there and I'm like, hey, I really feel like I can't focus. I said, and it's not just I walk into a room and I forget what I walked in there for. Like that happens. I said, I look at my to-do list and I think, what do I even start with? What do I even? And she was like, I got you. Like, and so, she's been trying to really help me get through it. And I appreciate that. And I think that that's the thing. And I've had several kind of weird health problems. I write about that in the book too. And I've had to learn to really self-advocate and really kind of be like, no, this is really happening. This is something I need help with. I need you guys to listen to me. And if you're not going to listen to me, I'm going to find somebody else who will. Because I do that with my business. So why wouldn't I do that with my health? I can't tell you how many agents I've been through at this point. It's like, and so why have I kept the same doctor for 20 years who, tells me that I'll be fine, that I just need to suck it up, which I think there is. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think I do need to suck it up at times too. I can't just go through this, in a daze or whatever, but I think that there's got to be some things we can do and he can help me and he should have helped me, but
We talk about that a lot, breaking up with your doctor, because women either are embarrassed to talk about things like vaginal dryness, mood swings, rage, brain fog, because they know their doctor or they're just embarrassed to talk about it. And if your doctor can't answer your questions and give you relief, then it's okay to break up with them. It's not going to a personal thing. Some doctors, most doctors aren't educated properly on menopause, and continuing education really isn't where it's at should be. And there are plenty of board certified OBGYNs that are menopause certified that can answer your questions. So we tell a lot of our listeners, don't feel guilty breaking up with your doctor. It's okay. You can move on and you'll be surprised. Like you said, advocating for yourself is so important. And at this time of life, midlife, one of the things we hear a lot, which I'm sure you hear in your group, is that I don't feel seen or heard. I feel invisible. What do you tell your group members about feeling unseen and unheard?
Well, as a loud woman, it's sort of, my advice is always take up a lot of space. And, I do think though, something about menopause and our generation that's going through it. And I always say that I started out as a mom blogger back in 2011. I'm Gen X. And we were sort of the first bloggers to talk about postpartum depression. And we were the first ones to kind of open up about that, hey, I'm really struggling over here. Motherhood is not perfect. I went viral because I wrote a post about motherhood. I feel judged and I don't feel like I'm perfect and I don't want to be perfect. And so, and I think that menopause and perimenopause, I think it's going to be the same way, that we are still going to just be that loud, obnoxious. We're a very small generation, but we're very big. Plus we have millennials now. Millennials are aging. Those, welcome ladies, welcome. And they are a very big group, and they have always advocated for themselves, and they have always, been kind of the loud voice in the room too. So I always think that, I feel like as I get older, it's kind of that, what is it? You used to always hear about, like, mouthy old ladies or whatever. Like, I understand now why they are. Like, I get it, because it's kind of sometimes the only way you're going to get any sort of attention. And I'm nice to a certain extent. I mean, everyone's like, oh, well, if you go in like a nice little old lady, I'm like, yeah, but I don't really feel like I should have to be like that. I think, what would a man say? What would a man do? And I try to take that space.
Yeah, and you address that as well in your book. Just the space. I know you talk about being told nice ladies don't do this and nice girls don't do that. And then you also were talking about how physicians, for the same treatment for a man that had a vasectomy, he got OxyContin, and a woman giving birth was like just hardly given anything. And can you just talk about how you kind of did address that, but can you talk about how those differences, like with men and women, and what you've seen in those spaces?
Well, I have always said that if it was men who got pregnant accidentally instead of women, we'd have drive-through clinics for everything they could possibly need. Like, they could take care of that over a lunch break kind of thing. And so, for instance, I just had dinner the other night, Sunday night. I had dinner with a friend who had a hysterectomy, super invasive. Her doctor didn't even explain to her what was going to happen. Even, like, she was having some complications afterwards, and she went to see the doctor, and she got to the office, and another surgeon saw her, and he was like, oh, did you not know that we did, X, Y, and Z as well to you? And she was like, no one told me that. And he was like, oh yeah, you had all this other stuff. And he's like, what are they giving you? And she's like, I'm on like Tylenol. And he's like, oh, well, we can give you more than that. And and it's like, she had no idea. And I think that's the other thing, is like kind of like the luck of the draw with whatever doctor you get to, that some doctors are like, oh girl, we got to get you taken care of. And some doctors are like, you're going to be okay. And I think there's that whole, we all talk about the man cold, but I do think the man cold is real. And, my husband is the only person I know that was ever, he went to the emergency room a few years ago when swine flu was a thing. He went to the emergency room because he got dehydrated. And I'm like, you were 5 feet from a sink. Like, what, how in the world did you get dehydrated? And he was like, well, you never brought me water. And I was like, I had 2 babies. Like, I had 2 small children I was trying to keep alive. I didn't realize I had to keep you alive as well. Like, I gave you a glass, I put you near a sink. Like, how did you get dehydrated? But I just think, like, part of it is them, that they don't even know how to take care of themselves. And then I think part of it is that they are just huge babies, because I had a friend who had a vasectomy. He got like 3 days off from work, which I was like, do you know how much do you know how much time we get off for having a baby? Like,
Yeah.
and he got, super, super, super great pills, super great painkillers, to the point where I was like, hey, be careful. Like, you might get addicted to those things. Like, those are really strong. And I'm always just amazed at how we just worry and bend over backwards for them. If they have, if I have a gallbladder surgery, it's not near as bad as if, a man had a gallbladder surgery, even though it's both of our gallbladders coming out.
Although I have to say, kidney stones, I've had kidney stones, and I think it's harder for men to pass them.
So that's what I hear. I have heard that the kidney stones, and I've seen them. They do look pretty bad. So I'll give men that. I'll give you a kidney stone. But the rest of it, like, no. I'm not allowed to swear on here, but I would say, like, go F yourself,
Right.
You can say that. You can say that.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can bleep me if you have to, but
No.
because I'm always amazed at, like, how how much longer it takes them to recover, and the things that we go through. I think TikTok, I've discovered TikTok in the last couple of years, and I love TikTok. I don't know if you guys are on there at all, but
Yeah.
I love TikTok and I love watching all these things because for me, one, I learned a lot of stuff that I didn't even know I knew, I needed to know or didn't know. But for another thing is a lot of people are also learning things. And there's a lot of women out there educating men about things like an IUD, like, what exactly is an IUD and how exactly does it go into your body and what exactly are they doing to you? And what do you get for that? And you're like, yeah, you get an ice pack and a Tylenol, and they tell you go home. We just put a fish hook in you, but and
Right.
so, and men are just like, and you guys do this without any sort of, you're not out cold. And we're like, no, and so I think, and that's the thing too, I think a lot of people are women are starting to demand that we're just like, wait a minute, I should not have to feel all this. I should not, you have no idea like what I'm feeling, what this pain is like and what's going on. And I would like to have something to treat that. And there's nothing wrong. I think that's the other thing. I think we get embarrassed for asking for that too. When you were saying like we get embarrassed about talking to our doctors, I'm not embarrassed about talking to my doctors about vaginal dryness, but I will tell him that I am embarrassed to talk to him about being a baby. Then I'm like, he's like a little pinch. I'm like, yeah, I got it, no problem. And he's like, you good? I'm like, super good, super good, super good. That was a great pinch, loved it. And like I won't be that one, but we
Right.
have to be. I think some of us have to be, because I look now at my daughter and I think I don't want my daughter to go through that. I
Yeah.
don't want her to feel that and suffer through that if she doesn't have to. So.
Right. That's, Colleen and I said, another reason we started this, we have daughters. I have a son and a daughter. She has two daughters. And we want our daughters, when they go through this time of life, we want things to be there for them. We want them to be able to know
Right.
it very readily. So that is another
For them
reason.
to take for granted what we have to fight and raise our voices for is great.
Yeah.
Can we talk about finding purpose in this
Mhm.
stage of life? Because you do talk about that in the book as well. And we hear from a lot of listeners, I'm an empty nester, or I have reached the pinnacle of this career. I really don't want to do it anymore, but I don't know what my purpose is. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So purpose is really important, I think, in getting through this next stage of life, because especially if you're a mom, if you've been a mom for 18, 20 years, whatever it is, that's even if you have another job outside of the home, it's still a huge part of your job. It's a huge part of your life, and it's a huge part of your identity. I can't tell you how many phones I'm in where I'm, so-and-so's mom probably in their phone rather than Jen, and I think that when the kids start going off to college or beyond, you're sort of like, well, what do I do now? Like, what am I supposed to do? What are my weekends going to be full of now that I don't have to go sit at soccer games or dance competitions or what have you, and what am I going to do? But it's also not just moms. I just saw a friend a few weeks ago. She's in her mid 40s. She's single. She's never had kids. She has a very high powered job, and she is having problems with purpose. She's like, it was like you said before, that I'm kind of done with this job. I'm kind of over this. Like, I don't really want to do this for the next half of my life. Like, what am I going to do? And I was like, you got to find a purpose. And she's like what? And I was like, it's different for everybody. Like, you got to figure it out. You got to know what you have to try things. That's the other thing is, between purpose and friends, I can't tell you, those are probably the two biggest complaints I hear about in my group. But it's, I need a purpose and I need a friend, but I don't want to leave my house, but I don't want to put on a bra and go anywhere. I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to try anything new, and I'm that person too. Like, that is 100% me, where I was just like, I don't want to leave my house, especially right now. It's cold out. Who wants to go out in the cold? Who wants to go out when it's dark at 4:00 in the afternoon? Like, you just don't want to do these things, but you're not going to find a purpose sitting in your, in your office or in your basement, or, watching Netflix all day or TikTok all day. Like, that's, unless you find the purpose on TikTok, or maybe making TikToks is your purpose. I don't know. That's the thing. Like, you got to try these things and see what is it that you're interested in. And so I told her, I was like, you need to make a list of things that bring you happiness, that bring you, that fulfill you. And she realized that she really likes working with women's shelters for women who are in domestic abuse situations. And I was like, well, they always need help. I have one of my best friends, he's the fundraiser for one here in Kansas City. And I was like, I'm always hearing how much he needs help. and they would love, and especially with her business expertise that she has, they definitely need her help. And so I was like, call him, tell him that you want to do so many hours a week with him, and try to do that. Because, and it might not just be volunteering. It doesn't always have to be volunteer. She's in a position where it is. Some people, it's just a whole pivot of a new job. I mean, there's that cliche where, you know, you sell everything and you move to the beach and you rent surfboards, right? You know, there's a reason why people do that. And I just saw someone on my Facebook yesterday that she and her husband, their kids left, they're off to college, they sold everything and they're moving overseas, you know, and they're just like, we're out, we're going to see you later. And I don't have that. That's not for me. That's not what I want to do. But for them, it sounds like it's going to be great. And I'm excited to see what they do. I'm following along. So purpose it's a hard one, but it's a very personal one. And it takes a lot of soul searching and asking other people, what's your purpose? What are you doing? What do you do all day? And can I come along with you? Can I try that? Can I go walk dogs with you? I hear dogs are fun. Let's go try it. So
instead of just going to pick up one and having a dog, give it a shot first.
Which
maybe.
know you did too. You had a pandemic puppy, so
I did.
Yeah,
I did. We got one of those, and he's great. I don't know that, I don't know I'll get another one, but he's great.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because when you try something at this stage of your life, if you're just searching for your purpose, I don't look at it as a failure if it doesn't work out. It's just like something you tried, and there's so many things you can try when you're at this stage of life. But it's nice, like, Colleen and I, when we started this 4.5 years ago, we just jumped right in. We had no idea what we were doing. We just knew
how
that
hard could it be to do a podcast?
Yeah.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
hard.
That's why, yeah, we learned that pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's also helpful to write down things that you don't want to do. If you're not clear on what you want, you can kind of get some clarity when you figure out what you don't want. And that list can be very long or very short.
Yeah.
But that can kind of clear your brain a little bit too. So we sometimes suggest, just write down a list of things you absolutely don't want to do. And sometimes something will pop up from that.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
Some other things you hit just with partnership, with your husband, you talk about scheduling sex. And I'm like, you know what? Sometimes my husband and my son edits these videos. So, hey, bud, sorry.
Yes, Jack, are you
so
listening?
Jack, here you go. And my husband will like, can I pencil in? Can I pencil in? And Colleen's like going to look at John now. Like,
I'm going to say, John, where's the pencil?
Yes.
As long as you've got an eraser in case things come up, then I can erase with that pencil. But, you talk about that. Can you talk about why that can be something really helpful in your relationship?
Yeah, because I think a lot of times in a relationship, there's always one person that wants more loving than the other one does, I think, and pays closer attention, and they take it very personally, where it's not personal. I'm just tired, and so, it's always like, oh, well, maybe if you do the laundry, that was when my kids were young, I was like, well, if you did the laundry and you did the dishes, like, then I wouldn't be so tired, and now I don't now he does the laundry and he does the dishes. So I'm like, dang it, I got to figure it. No, but he just he would just keep track. And in his mind, he would say, oh, it's been a month. And I would be like, it's been like 8 days. And so what the joke was is I literally started putting it on my calendar when we had sex, so that I could prove him wrong and be like, no, it was Monday at 4 p.m. It was Thursday at 8. But then also it just started getting busier. And now we have one kid who's away at college, but we have one who's basically, she's homeschooled. She's in virtual school. So she's home all the time. And it's not like when they were little and you could just put them to bed, and now it's like, and they have that sixth sense, they just kind of coming around and they're like, what are you guys doing? Nothing. So
they do have that sixth sense. You're right.
Yeah,
it's like they know the exact time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so then it became where I was like, okay, we're going to have to put this on the calendar, because I do have rules. I'm just like, I don't want to do it after 10 p.m. at night because I'm too tired. I'm like, he doesn't want to do it first thing in the morning, whereas I'm like, oh, morning would be great. We just start our day. And, and he's like, no, morning, my brain is on fire about work and things. And, so it's like, so we had to kind of compromise and find a day and a time. And it kind of changes. He'd like to have it, every Tuesday at noon or something like that. But you have to look at the calendar and say, okay, well, this week I got Thursday at 4. What do you got? And he's like, I got Thursday at 4:30. I'm like, perfect. Put me down. And, so other ways, because otherwise I really would probably just not, like, I just would be like, oh, I'll get you tomorrow. And I could say that for a month, and it makes him feel bad,
Yeah.
Right.
and I don't want him to feel bad. And so I try to do what I can that I'm comfortable with too, because
Right.
it's like, it takes him a hot minute to get you're in the mood, and it's like, you can't just be like, quick, let's go. You have to. And I
Yes,
think
you're
that's the
not
other reason.
25 anymore. It takes a
Well,
little
yeah.
bit of
And
preparation time.
I think that's the other reason why I, want it on my calendar too, so I can be like, oh, I probably should shower today because I haven't showered in 3 days. Like,
Shave those legs.
oh,
Yeah.
I know shaving. I mean,
You're done. You're done.
That's for new boyfriends. That's not for him.
That went the way of tampons.
Yeah, exactly.
Razors. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Oh,
I
that's
brush my
funny.
teeth and I'll shower, but that's about it.
Brushing your teeth that's nice.
That's
That's
nice.
showing effort. But
I
it's
think
trend
so.
for a lot of women, and we talk about this with experts. Your libido also goes down during perimenopause and menopause. So it, like you said, it's not like a 1 second thing. A lot of
Mhm.
women have to prepare, or a lot of women have to take some time to get in the mood, and communication with your spouse or partner is key. If they know what's going on, they won't take it so personally.
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
Mhm. And women, they say, you've got a little more in your brain up here. It's not so much, like the man,
Yeah.
ready to anything, but it's a lot. It's a brain and body combination thing that to get you going, to get you
Yeah.
in the mood. Yeah.
Well, and I think too with women our age, and I think men don't understand this either, because I think, every man I talk to is like, we don't care about this stuff, but women care. We're getting older. Things look different now in the stark light of day when we're standing there naked. I have a whole chapter called, is that a hair on my nipple? Like, I mean, you
Yes.
have weird stuff happening to you, and and it's like, and that's all you can think about is like, oh, this is saggy, or that is not as firm as it once was, or what have you. And he's just like, I'm just happy to be here. Like, like, I don't care, but we care. And I think that gets us in our heads too at this age.
Oh, yeah. I agree. I think it absolutely does.
You also mentioned about the lack of desire for small talk.
Mhm.
No, which I totally get and totally relate to, because I think when I hit maybe 50, I'm 56 now. When I hit 50, I was like, I just don't want to, like, tell me what you need. Tell me what you need. I don't want to be on the phone for a half hour. I don't want to sit here and talk about these things that I don't really have an interest in. And you do kind of get that way. And sometimes it's hard to cover that up and fake it. Can you talk a little bit about no more small talk?
I think I've always been that way, and just now it's just more acceptable because we're older and all of us are more that way. But I feel like, but it also goes to, it's not so much that I don't have time to hear all this. It's more that I don't care about
Right.
this. And I don't know how to say this like any nicer than that, because it's like, what I care about is I care about who you are. Like, I care about like talking to you about like, real things. And I live in this town. I know what the weather and the traffic are like. I got it. I was out today. I understand. We're 2 weeks out from Christmas. Woo, yeah, I haven't shopped yet. My goodness. It's like, but like, tell me like what you're really thinking about. Tell me what's going on in your world. Tell me how you're feeling, or what is affecting you these days, because there's a meme out there, something about like, I don't want to know, I don't know what you have, I don't want to know what you had for lunch. I want to know why your cousin lost her kids, because like I can see their Facebook information and stuff, and it's like, yeah, tell me what all the dirt, tell me the gossip, tell me the tea. I want to know what's happening in your knitting circle. Like, why is Mary mad at Joyce? What's going on over there? But I think, to me, because I feel like otherwise you don't have a real relationship with a person. You can't really get to know them otherwise. Like, you know, and it's one thing if you're going to like a networking function and you're just trying to find, you know, clients to work with and that kind of thing. I can do that. That's fine. But when I'm trying to go somewhere to like, you know, meet new people, I don't want to talk about the weather. And that's why I try to join things more like a book club or you know, a movie club, where that way at least we can like talk about that. We can talk about the book or the movie or what have you.
Yeah, like a deeper meaning, and then it leads you to think about other things. So I think that's one thing with small talk. You're like, I'm done with that. And I do want to talk about how part of your book, um, where I felt like you were like my hero, was when the guy Dave like cuts in line at that bookstore. Can you share that? Because I think in that moment I was like, she's every woman's hero. Yay.
Dave.
I was raging. I was raging when I read it.
There is always a Dave.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
always, you know, when you write books called People I Want to Punch in the Throat, and you sit there at a book signing and people are walking by your table, there are two reactions that you get. And one says, oh my God, I love that title. That's hilarious. You know, those are my people. Then there's another person that will walk by and say, oh, that sounds violent. I don't really care for that. You are not my people. But then there's like a third person, and it's always a dude. And he'll come by and he'll say, huh, people I want to punch in the throat, you know. Have you really ever done that? Have you really, you know, you could kill someone doing that. Cool story, bro. Tell it more, you know? And so they always feel like they have to like, I don't know, like they want you to perform and then or when they find out I write humor, tell me something funny, tell me a joke. And I'm like, what do you do? You know, I'm a plumber. Go plumb a toilet. Like go show me something that you do. And so I was at this book signing and I'd been on the road. I did I don't even remember how many cities I did, but my readers hosted a book signing for me around the country. And so I went to all these different kinds of places. And this was like a city, what is the word I'm trying to think of, where all the businesses come together and they have lunch together, Chamber of Commerce, right?
Oh, okay.
The Chamber of Commerce. So the room was predominantly men, you know, it was probably 70% men. And I don't do as well in a room like that. So, but I got up there and I did my spiel and everything. And then when it was all over, people were lined up to like buy my book. And he came up and he just sort of cut the line and he said, you know, do you mind if I take a look at this book? And at your little book is what he called it, because your little book. And I said, sure, you can look at my New York Times bestselling book. Go ahead, you know. And he picked it up and he's kind of thumbing through it and he's just kind of scoffing and making comments. And finally I was like, I just don't think it's for you. Like, I don't think that's your book. If you want to put it down and move out of the way, that would be great, because there's other people that need to get up here. And he was stunned, because I don't think anyone has ever said that to him. But I started saying that, you know, again, this was not my first rodeo. And I have that happen to me a lot, and they want to block the table and they want to block people from the people who actually want to talk to you and need to talk to you and want to read this book and need to read the book. Like, you're blocking them and you're hogging up the oxygen in the room and you're ruining the energy. And I need you to just keep moving. Clearly, I'm not your cup of tea. I am not for you. You are not for me. I encourage you to go find someone else to read. And he didn't know what to do with himself, but he moved.
I loved it, because I know every woman that has happened to. Every woman, some man has come up and tried to mansplain or whatever, or just insult.
Just energy suckers in the room, as we like to call
vampire energy.
Yeah.
And I'll just say, because I'm sure men listen to this podcast, and so I'll just say hashtag not all men,
right?
But hashtag always a man. And so maybe you guys could maybe talk to your fellow men about moving along when something doesn't appeal to them.
Right. You don't have, you can scroll, you can move along. You don't have to stop.
You don't have to engage.
Your thing. No, you can.
Nobody invited you to engage.
No, nobody told you had to come up afterwards and talk to me and buy a book. It was all voluntary. You could have left, and tons of people left. And you could have been one of those people who left, but you didn't want to. And at that point, all I had were like women left in my line. I only had, I don't know, 15 people left probably. And it was all women. And they all just stood there like, do you hear yourself? Like, do you hear what you're saying to her? Like, you know?
Yeah.
But
just, oh my goodness. Yeah. That really stuck you know, it made me
Bravo
want to just,
on
yes,
that.
I was cheering on that one. Yeah.
What's happening next now? What are you working on?
Oh, what am I working on now? So I have I have an idea for a follow-up to Midlife Bites that I've been kind of working on, tentatively called Nice Women Don't Talk About Such Things. And I think it's going to be like taboo topics that even more so than Midlife Bites that we don't talk about. And I'm trying to figure that out and what I want to say in there. But I'm also looking at fiction. I really want to write fiction. And I've been working on a book that I've thought about this idea probably 10 years ago. And 10 years ago, my husband told me it was too violent. I had an idea where moms, suburban moms would drive around in their minivans and exact like equalizer type justice on bad people, you know, that wronged their friends or whatever. You know, they'd run over, you know, an abusive husband in their minivan, or they'd, you know, put, you know, a fish in somebody's car, you know, or something. You know, they would do these things. And he was just like, that is so violent and so crazy. I can't believe you are thinking like that. And I was like, I don't know, like, don't you ever like just fantasize about just like, you know, tying somebody up, you know, and who hurt your friend? And he's like, no. I'm like, just me then. And then so I just kept percolating with this idea, and I was like, he thinks it's too violent. And then about a year ago, I saw an agent on Twitter basically ask for that same story, and I was like, I got it. And so I just have been trying to write it to make it funny but not too scary. Like, I don't want people to be scared of me, but you know, I'm not Gillian Flynn, but I'm like, if Gillian Flynn wrote humor, what would it look like? You know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that sounds great. I don't think that's too
it
violent.
sounds really good.
I like the idea of actually being able to punch someone in the throat for once, maybe, you know, for real.
Especially someone who really deserves it. I like that. You know,
anyone who bullies your child right then and there,
bullies your child. And like you said, abusive spouse, just anything like that.
Well, and that's it. And I think, again, and I think this is a book that I needed to wait to write, because now I am at this stage where I do have so many friends that are going through really bad divorces, or now they're dating men that are just, you know, horrible men. You know, do better, please, guys who are out there dating on these apps. You know, like, you know, she gets all ready for dinner and shows up, and then he texts her at the last minute and says there's some sports game on and he's not coming. You know, that is a man who I need to go to his house, and I just need to, like, I don't know, probably hire a male stripper and send him to his house and make him really uncomfortable, you know, like while he's having his football party. Like, I don't know. Like,
I was thinking disconnect the cable, just kind of cut the cord.
That too. I mean, I try to think of what would mortify them, hurt them, embarrass them, maybe kill them.
See, and that's not violent. That's not violent at all. Yeah, you didn't hurt them physically or anything.
Not yet.
And that's hypothetical. Nobody is saying that we would actually, this is all hypothetical.
Exactly.
Oh, well, definitely. We'll be first in line to buy that book.
We want to hear
and have
about
you
it.
back
And
on.
I'll find out about it sooner. So,
I'll let you know this time when it comes out. I'll email you.
Oh man. Well, we want to thank you so much. This has been so much fun talking to you, and just having a book out there and having a space where women can come and talk and just get these things out, because when you don't feel alone, that is the first step in just healing and just feeling surrounded by people, by a community of people that are just like you. So thank you so much for coming on today.
Well, thank you for having me. And I really appreciate you guys finding me and reaching out. And I wish you great luck with your podcast. And
well, thank you
so much. And good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck writing the book. It sounds like it's going to be fun.
It may be a movie. It might be made into a movie or a series.
Right?
Yes.
Wouldn't that be great?
I'd watch it.
Call me, Netflix. Call me.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.